Hello everybody, welcome back to another exciting edition of Ed Puzzle Lecture Notes. We are continuing in the integumentary system. Now remember, these are lectures, just like a live lecture. The only difference is you can rewind this lecture, you can pause it, and you can watch it at home. If you have questions, make sure you write them down so you can ask them at a later time. Now we're going to start with the different pigments, which gives our skin the different shades or the different colors. And of course, hopefully we've learned about this one by now, or at least heard of it. Melanin is produced in the epidermis by melanocytes. Remember those melanocytes? They're located very deep in the epidermis, in the basal layer. So they're the very deepest layer. No matter how light or how dark your skin is, you have the same number of melanocytes. The only difference is the amounts of melanin that they produce. And now those colors can vary from yellow to kind of reddish. Usually you think of yellow to tan or even black. And they're most prevalent in certain parts of the body. The male penis, I don't know what that means, are playing. Also in the face and the limbs. Now the reason the face and the limbs, they need melanin is because they are exposed to UV light, UV sunlight. And UV sunlight, you will have to remember this because I believe that will be on our test. UV sunlight causes an increase in melanin production. Basically, that's what makes you get your tan. So if you're exposed to a lot of UV light, UVB light, your body produces more melanin in order to protect the dermis and the rest of your body, the deeper layers of your body, from that harmful UV light. And a couple other pigments that do determine the tone or color of your skin. Carotene in the dermis. It gives you a yellowish, orangish pigment or color. It's found in stratum corneum and the dermis. Will you need to know that? I would say probably not. Also, hemoglobin, the oxygen-carrying pigment found in blood cells. That's what gives you a reddish hue. So no matter who you are definitely going to have hemoglobin. And the absence of other pigments, so if other pigments are not present, a pinkness color will be evident. All right, so now looking at the skin color in terms of different races of people. So remember, your skin tone is caused by the amount and the type of the pigments you produce, not by the number of melanocytes that you have. It's because everybody has about the same number of those cells which produce melanin, but some people's melanocytes produce more melanin than others. Caucasians tend to appear kind of pinkish due to the lack of melanin being produced by the melanocytes. So they appear pinkish due to the hemoglobin that they carry in their blood or their capillaries. Now a couple of observations that you can tell or notice about, different people's skin. Some people have freckles. That is totally genetic. It's in your genes, it's in your DNA, whether you have freckles or not. And those are just melanocytes which are kind of located in a patch. So like a clump of melanocytes, therefore they release more melanin in that area. So you'll see darker spots on their skin. Those are freckles or liver spots. Albinism is another genetic condition. That is where people inherit lack of the melanocytes. They don't produce melanin. Therefore, you do not have any pigment in your skin, in your eyes, or in your hair. So basically, you are totally white. Everything on you is white. And the last one's called vitiligo. That's an autoimmune disorder where it's like your body actually fights against your melanocytes, but not everywhere, but just like in patches. So you'll see your skin will have patches of white. So you'll have like regular tan skin in some areas, but then you'll have patches of really, really light skin in other areas. And that is caused by vitiligo, an autoimmune disorder. And here are some pictures of the things we went over on the previous slide. So here's what would be vitiligo. So this is an autoimmune condition where you can see this patch of very, very light skin against the more normal skin that they have in other areas. So this is where the melanocytes are kind of being fought against by your own immune system. So it's taking out those melanocytes so they're not releasing melanin, so you have patches of really, really light skin. This, of course, I probably don't have to tell you, those are freckles. So those are patches of melanocytes which are releasing more melanin than in other areas of your body. And these two people have the genetic condition called albinism. So they do not produce melanin. So they have extremely light hair, extremely light skin, and they usually have no pigment, which means they have blue eyes. And now looking at your skin color as a diagnostic clue or a tool to help you diagnose somebody. One thing is called jaundice, and that's a yellowish color to the skin and also the whites of your eyes. It's caused by a buildup of a pigment called bilirubin. Know that because it will be on your test. Bilirubin is like yellowish orangish. It's produced when your red blood cells are broken down. So bilirubin is natural in your blood, but it's your liver's job to convert that bilirubin into bile, and then it's excreted from your body. But if there's something wrong with your liver, if you have liver disease, that bilirubin can build up and give your skin and your eyes a yellowish hue, and that's what's called jaundice. Another one is called cyanosis or cyanotic, and that's when you get a bluish color. And that is because the hemoglobin is lacked of oxygen. Now, I know you remember, earlier in our gross anatomy that arteries are red, veins are blue. Well, arteries are red because they're oxygenated. They just went through the heart, they just went through the lungs, and now they're going through the body. They're full of oxygen. That's why they have that red pigment. But when blood becomes deoxygenated, like if you stopped breathing, that's where you can get a purple/blue pigment, especially like in your lips, but over your whole body as well. And the last one is erythema, which is kind of the opposite. It is a redness of the skin due to your capillaries enlarging or dilating in the dermis. And that can be caused by a number of things: inflammation, infection, if you have an allergy to something, obviously if you get burned. So, some sort of trauma to your skin can cause your capillaries to enlarge, which will give you more of a reddish hue to your skin, and that's called erythema. And this is what those things kind of look like that we discussed on the previous slide. So this would be like jaundice. Remember, that's a buildup of bilirubin in your blood because your liver is failing to convert it into bile, which will be excreted from the body. So that's the whites of the eyes have a yellow pigment, and that's called jaundice. Cyanosis, you can see where this guy's lips appear blue. It can be usually from lack of oxygen. Also, if you're extremely cold, your lips can be blue too because your capillaries will constrict and you'll have less blood flow, which can also make your skin appear to be blue. And here's the erythema, where you can see the patches, these little patches of red pigment. And that could be due to this guy. I mean, that was what you would look like if you stuck your hand in poison oak. You would get inflammation, your capillaries will expand, and there'll be more blood flow in that area, which will give you more of a reddish hue in that area. All right, now super, super important. The accessory structures of the skin, or accessory structures of the integumentary system. I'm not going to go over hair today, but I'm going to go over the oil glands, and the sweat glands, because those two seem to go together. And I'm going to go over hair and nails next time. So these are the structures that are present within the dermis and the epidermis. Now, a really, really important part of this unit are the glands of the skin. Very, very important. It's going to be a big part of your test. Now, these are exocrine glands. That means they secrete their products onto the epithelial surface, the top of the epidermis. Now, it could be inside your mouth, like with salivary glands. They also secrete their product through a duct. Now, like endocrine glands, endocrine, not exocrine, they secrete their product into the blood. But exocrine glands secrete their product through a duct onto the surface of the epidermis. Now, these guys are found deeper in the dermis. And now the different types, sebaceous glands. Remember, those are the oil glands. Now, they secrete their product, oil, or also called sebum, directly through a duct into the hair follicle, which helps to lubricate or moisturize the skin and the hair. You also have the sudoriferous or sweat glands, two different types. You have the apocrine sudoriferous gland or sweat glands. Remember, they secrete their sweat. It's a more viscous, it's a thicker sweat. It's also called the quote-unquote stinky sweat. And that is secreted into the hair follicles. And the more common one is the eccrine sweat glands. Those are more common, very common on the palms of your hand and the bottom of your feet. And those are more for thermoregulation, for cooling you off if you're hot. You also have ceruminous glands. Those are your wax glands. You have them in your ears. They secrete your earwax, which helps to trap little particles, which then get moved out to keep things out and away from your eardrum. You have your mammary glands, which of course, mammary secrete milk. And here are all the glands. Here is the sebaceous, or the oil glands. Most of them open into hair shafts and release their oil into the hair follicle. Remember, another word for the oil they release is called sebum. And it's a combination of cholesterol, proteins, fats, and salts. You won't need to know that. Its function is it keeps your hair and skin from drying out. It keeps your skin soft and pliable. And probably just as important, it inhibits the growth of bacteria and fungus, like ringworm. If you ever had ringworm, that is a fungus. But the oil or sebum that your sebaceous glands secrete help to inhibit its growth. And some very common abnormalities with the sebaceous glands. One everybody has heard of, and almost everybody has some sort of this at some time in their life, is acne. That is where the pore in your hair follicle, where the sebaceous gland is secreting its oil or sebum, becomes blocked by dead skin cells. And when that happens, it can become inflamed, because if bacteria gets in there, your body will start to fight it. It sends white blood cells, and you'll get what's called a whitehead, which is filled with pus, which is your white blood cells, and also bacteria. And closely related to that is what's called a boil, also called a cyst. Almost the same thing. It's also inflammation of the hair follicles where the sebaceous gland release their sebum or their oil into the hair follicle. The only difference is, the main difference, acne or pimples are much more localized, where boils or cysts can be much larger, sometimes even grow into the size of like a golf ball or even larger. And moving away from the sebaceous glands, now onto the sudoriferous glands, or the sweat glands. The way I remember it, sudoriferous. If you remove the U and put an O, soder, so then it'd be odor. Instead of odor right here, it'd be odor. And everybody knows that sweat has a bad odor. So sudoriferous glands are your sweat glands. And the first ones are the apocrine sweat glands. Remember, these are not as numerous or as common as the eccrine sweat glands. They're located in the armpits, pubic region, and also the areola on the breast. Now on your diagrams, they're easy to tell the difference between the eccrine sweat glands because they empty their product into the duct that opens onto hair follicles. So they do not secrete their product directly on top of the epidermis. They do secrete it into a hair follicle. Know that their secretions are more viscous. That means they're thicker. They're sticky because it has a fatty material in it. Now this is usually during sexual excitement it'll happen, or emotional stress, like if you're nervous. And this is also the type of sweat that is stinky. So this is what causes the body odor. And that stinky odor is actually caused by bacteria, which are breaking down the organic compounds in that viscous, kind of sticky sweat. So that's what causes that smell from your apocrine sweat glands. Now the other type of sudoriferous or sweat gland are the eccrine sweat glands. These are much more numerous than the apocrine sweat glands. Located very commonly on the forehead, palms of your hands, and the soles of your feet. Now remember, these do not secrete their product into a hair follicle, but directly onto the surface of the epidermis. It's very watery, so it's not as viscous or as thick as the apocrine sweat. And these are the sweat glands that regulate body temperature with perspiration. So if your body temperature starts to get too hot, your eccrine sweat glands release sweat, and through evaporation, remember homeostasis, that'll help to bring your body temperature back down. It also helps to eliminate some waste, excretion, mainly salts. And now these ceruminous glands. They're called ceruminous glands because they secrete cerumen. And that is basically wax found in your external auditory canal, basically your ears. And what they're important for is they help to form a barrier that helps to keep out foreign bodies like dirt or anything else. So it kind of traps it in there, and then it can actually help move it out away from your eardrum. And the last slide, remember, one of the functions or roles that your integumentary system plays in your body is thermoregulation. Helps to regulate your body temperature. Well, when you get too hot, it releases sweat onto the skin, and that perspiration with evaporation lowers your body temperature. You've probably felt this all the time. It can feel like a pretty warm day, but if you jump into the pool and then you get out and you feel that breeze, the evaporation causes you to cool down. It makes you feel cold. But sweating is only one way that your integumentary system helps to regulate your body temperature. It can also adjust flow of blood to the surface of the body. So, when you're exercising, it actually brings more blood to the surface of your skin, and since the blood is closer to the surface of the skin, that heat in your blood is able to release outside of your body. Now the opposite of that is, if you get too cold, the blood vessels near the surface of your skin can actually constrict or close up. So that makes less blood close to the surface of your skin. So since there's less blood near the surface, less heat from that blood can escape to the outside world. And that's what also can make you appear to your lips to look blue when you're really, really cold, because there's less blood being sent to the surface of your skin, and that helps to raise your internal body temperature. So that's another way that your integumentary system can maintain homeostasis and maintain your body temperature or thermoregulation. All right, thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you next time.